All right, we are live. So, good evening to everybody. This is a meeting of the North Andover Cable Advisory Committee. And for anybody who has joined us, welcome. I guess we have to start this meeting with the announcement from the governor. So, I am going to read that. Although, Bill Diadamo, you might help me with what this little squiggle means here. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, general law, chapter 30A, and then some sort of squiggle 18. I assume that means a section. And the
Correct.
Thank you. And the governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing a strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the North Andover Cable Advisory Committee may be conducted via remote participation by some or all committee members and staff. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to hear the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 99 or Verizon Channel 28, or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible. So we have that statement and we can dive into the agenda. So before we start for you guys, the agenda had a call to order, review of previous meetings minutes, which I don't have. So we will delay those for approval until we get them in the future. Bill, we're going to introduce you as the third item. Fourth item, review of the questions for prospective outside counsels. Along those lines, our first conversation was supposed to be with Alan Mandel. He has begged out of tonight. I will send a doodle pull out. He has requested some other dates where he's available. We will see if we can match those. Then the interview with Bill Hewig from KP Law. Bill was kind enough to move himself up into the first slot at 5:30. So we can spend about 30 minutes talking to him, have a brief discussion, and then adjourn for the evening. Anything on that before we move to the introduction of our new member?
Ron, quick thing. Shane sent an email. He's trying to call in.
Yeah, I just
Is she?
saw. I just saw that. I'm trying to send him the information again.
I did already by email, but I don't know.
Okay, well, we will let you guys work on that while we just proceed. So I would like then to introduce our new member, Bill Diadamo. Bill is a lawyer. He works out of Andover, lives in North Andover. The first thing I had to learn was that his name is not Diadamo, it is Diadamo. Now you know as much about Bill as I do. So, okay. Bill, I will let you introduce yourself.
Sure, thank you. I will not take a long time. Again, Bill Diadamo, and I've been a practicing lawyer since 1991. After graduating law school, I worked at a firm in Boston for about 10 years, and then I moved out to Lawrence, Mass to join. My dad had a practice in Lawrence, and I was there for about 15 or 16 years. After moving out of Lawrence, I moved my office over to downtown Andover. I lived in North Andover since about 1995. I grew up in Andover, so I've lived within 3 miles of where I now live for most of my life, the vast majority of my life. Primarily while in practice in Lawrence, although some carried over to Andover. Among other things, I represented a number of municipalities, public and quasi-public entities, and a whole wide variety of stuff. Most of my background has to do with litigation, although I have, as I said, I've represented various boards, committees, federal and state. I have been a trustee at Northern Essex Community College So sort of similar committee public membership type of representation there. So, generally I have some, I don't know anything really terribly specialized about cable contracts and the Federal Telecommunications Act, although I've tried to familiarize myself a bit. But I certainly know a fair amount about public agencies and um, contract negotiations, contract negotiation and stuff like that. So hopefully that will be of some assistance. Anybody has any questions or anything, please, happy to answer them. And I'm very happy to be able to participate and give back a little bit. That's all.
All right, well, Bill, thank you very much. We are delighted to have you as a member of the committee. We had a wish list. We were saying, well, we need a fifth member. What is the ideal profession we would like for our fifth member? And lawyer was at the top of the list. So we are delighted to have you here. Shane, are you on?
Yes, I am. Apologies for being late.
No, no problem, Shane. Nice to have you too. All right, so we have, again, it's 5:10. We have 20 minutes until we call Bill Hewig from KP Law. So let's take a look at, I guess, some of the questions. I know, Paul, you sent a very good list of questions, and I added just a couple to it. Have you folks had a chance to look at the list, or would you like me to go through them? I see Bill nodding. Shane, have you seen it?
No.
I have seen the list. I didn't have anything to add. I thought they were well done.
Okay, and Shanita, you good with this?
I have seen it. Just quick question. He's going to have a presentation to share with us like it used to be in the past, or no?
I did not, as far as I know, nothing was said to Bill about a presentation. So I think we just get him on and we have a conversation. We ask him some of these questions, and the questions were very germane to Verizon experience. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, okay, so no need to review the questions.
Yep. I just think that the only others, if it's not there, just making sure if they've helped other towns, just get a list of towns that they've helped in the past, and then I can do some follow-up research there.
All right. All right.
From what I've viewed looking through the contracts, it's almost all Bill August, Bill Solomon, and then Bill Hewig has done, I'm going to say 3, 4, 5 contracts that are posted.
This round?
Yeah. Recently, yeah.
Paul, were they Verizon contracts or Variety?
I don't remember specifically.
Okay. All right.
I think there was a Verizon or 2 in there.
Okay. So, all right. So I figured maybe the best way to approach this then is just to, get him on, introduce the members of the committee, and then, ask him, say, look, we prepared some questions, but is there anything he would like to say before we start that, would be helpful to us? And if he says yes, then of course we will listen and then ask our questions. And if not, we'll just drive right into the questions.
We still have time, right, Ron? We still have time before he got on the call.
Yeah, he comes on at 5:30, Shanita.
We call
Brian.
him. We call him, so
Yeah.
we can talk as long as we want until we call him.
Brian, can you do me a favor? Because Shane is here too. Can you briefly summarize our status in terms of the timing? Because I understand that we are a little bit late, aren't we?
We're right
Behind the schedule.
We're right at the schedule at this point. So looking at the document that I sent out to you guys, the formal renewal process, phase 1, the cable company has to send us a letter, send the town a letter, and apparently we just heard that Suzanne found that they sent the town a notice of renewal on October 20th, I think. So we think it crossed in the mail. And then, so the formal renew process, I'm going to read from the document real quick, must begin between 36 and 30 months prior to the expiration of the license. The issuing authority may commence the formal renewal process on its own initiative and must inform the cable operator that it has done so. While there is no specific action that an issuing authority must take in order to demonstrate that it has commenced the formal renewal process, the issuing authority should perform some tangible act to begin the ascertainment, to begin to ascertain the community's cable-related needs and interests. For example, issuing authority can do a survey or to the community or hold a public hearing, and that's before the 30 to 36 month period. So anywhere between June, what is it, 2nd, June 6th, June 2nd, and 6 months later, right? 36. Yeah. So where I think December 2nd or December 4th, whatever the expiration date is, like that period. So the town took it upon itself to send that notice of the right to hold the formal process. That letter's gone out, and I think that was included. She emailed the cable advisory committee. So although it's not required, you know, it's just how was it worded? It's not required, but the issuing authority should perform some tangible act, you know, and maybe the tangible act is, you know, maybe to I mean, we can do a survey, we could vote on a public hearing tonight before that date, or we could start a survey, you know, at least vote on starting the survey at this point, or, you know, we can decide on what type of action we can do. You maybe even requesting that that the cable access station starts to gather their information to report to the cable advisory board. You know, that's
Are you saying that that's 6 months from June 2nd or 6 months from when we received the Verizon letter? Because I thought it was 6 months from when we received the Verizon letter, so I thought that gave us till April to start moving towards ascertainment.
We'd have to look at the law, but the guidance on that guidance PDF that we have, the formal renew process must begin between 36 and 30 months prior to the expiration of the license.
Okay.
So if the license expired in June, or is going to, right, June, whatever it was, June 2nd on our old license. So we're in that window based on that statement.
Well, given that it's then, that would put us at December 2nd, and that it is November 23rd, and we're cruising into Thanksgiving, our act should be, Brian, hey, go figure out what you need.
Right.
You know?
Right. Start gathering, you know.
Start gathering information. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I don't think we're going to have time to do much else. Plus, you know, there are things that we're going to have to try to figure out, like, you know, you do a public hearing, but it's all remote. All right. So how many public people can you have on this thing at once? Is there a better way to collect the information? As you say, a survey?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to need input from the town, and without an IT director,
Mm-hmm.
that may be a little bit harder to get these days.
Right.
So
that might be another thing to do, to at least to enact it, is to reach out to the departments, because it's going to take a while for that information to gather. So the school department, the IT department, that's a tangible act that you're going to at least start from the administration, and then we'll move to the outside community afterwards.
Yeah, but I would want the IT department to be reaching out
to the different,
which is
divisions.
what we've done in the past. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I think that's something that the town ought to kind of keep within there.
Right, but you, as the committee, as the cable advisory committee, you guys can ask, you know,
Yes.
request that starts, and that's,
Yes.
I think, you guys tell me that might be enough for a tangible act too.
It will have to be.
Right.
Do we know anything about? Sorry.
No, go.
Do we know anything about the status of a new IT person?
They were in second rounds last week.
Okay.
They were in the second round of interviews. And that's the
So
last I heard. But
So it's at least conceivably on the horizon. This isn't like could be another year or two before we
Nope.
hear about this. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
And D Casey is acting, on the administrative side if we really needed to push something out.
Okay.
Ron, with the other upcoming interview, do you have a timeline? Do you want us to finalize our choice of the lawyer?
Well, yeah, I think we should discuss it and try to finalize it if we can do that based on the two conversations we're going to have. Yeah, sadly, Alan Mandel, I guess, had to back out, so we've got to try to get him again. I think you might have seen the email. He provided some dates where he is available, so I will send the doodle poll out again and ask if you guys are available. Again, we'll need a quorum to have that meeting. But hopefully we can get a date shortly where we'll all be able to get on to a conversation with him. And then we'll have enough information from both of them to make a decision, hopefully. Did that answer your question, Shanita?
Yes, because I'm just looking at the calendar to make sure that we do have enough time and schedule for the follow-up after the two interviews.
I think so. Again, I've got to go through that document that Brian referenced again and just got to get the timeline down. It's not something that I have committed to memory, but I would think we would, given that our contract is not up until, 2023?
Yep.
Yeah. God, that doesn't give us time. I don't know what does. So, yeah, but hopefully that will be enough time. But I'll check on that, Shanita, and Brian, you'll help me with that since you probably have much better awareness of this than I do. And
Yeah,
we'll
I can try and
put a timeline together.
Yeah, I can put an outline together, and then go over it with you.
Okay. All right. For asking the questions, do you guys want me to do that, or do you want to just kind of go round robin and you can pick whichever one interests you the most?
I think it should be only one person, and then maybe at the end if there's any extra.
Okay. And should we agree that we'll hold him to let's say 30 minutes? You want to do 30? You want to do 45? How long do you want this to go?
I suggest maybe shoot for 30, and if we need to go a little bit longer, it will fill the time we allot, I think. So try to get him, and try to be efficient.
All right. We'll ask him what time dinner is.
There you go.
We'll see what he wants to do. I know what time my dinner is. How's that?
And just how did we find this attorney? I forget. Is this the one from the open meeting law one?
Yeah,
Okay.
KP Law did the open meeting, and I think Paul had brought their name forward a while ago, and then when Suzanne had talked about Alan Mandel, I then threw KP Law into the mix too, because I wanted to at least talk to two before we determined what we do. But I don't think we've reached, we had kind of concluded before this was a rarefied breed. The woodwork is not popping with Telecommunications Act lawyers.
So I presume that you guys are going to give him like a few minutes to introduce himself. Am I correct?
Yes. That's I think the best way to do it. And then just ask questions, whatever questions we have time to ask.
And then just going forward, I think we should probably check with Suzanne to find out, this is a cable advisory committee to the selectmen, specifically related into negotiating the contract. Yes, it's a public meeting, but how much, we may have to go into official executive sessions if it's a competitive situation. You know what I mean? Like if it's a sensitive information. Because
I do agree.
Because they have the ability to go to YouTube now and listen to every single word we say. So we just got to see how they handle the executive sessions. I know the selectmen have executive sessions, and it's not on camera. They keep the minutes like they used to. It's never been open to the public before. So that may ease a little bit of how we navigate a little bit going forward.
Yeah, you lost me amid though with pulling the selectmen in. Why?
I just know I just know they have met in executive session. I've seen it.
Yeah, we would have the right to do that as well.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
But it's not. It has nothing to do with us having to televise it.
No. Yeah, I mean, if we go into executive session, fine, no TV.
Right.
We go totally private. And I think the suggestion is very good that when it comes to making the decision, that discussion goes into executive session.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then you have more pick and choose of what date you meet on, because if it doesn't have to go on TV, you can meet on whatever convenient day there is.
Right. And are we still looking at, when we try to reschedule Alan Mandel, are we still talking Mondays, Wednesdays?
I can look at those dates, but those are the freest dates. But as we're getting in between these holidays, maybe the other boards aren't meeting as much, so we might have a little bit more flexibility. I can look at that while we're talking.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, right now, December 14th week is kind of wide open.
Yeah, I have to look at the dates. The dates he gave us were much before then, so that we'll have to negotiate with him.
Okay.
All right. Easy to do. Okay. All right. Well, short of that, I've got nothing else until next 5 minutes.
Question then. Do we know of any other municipalities, either in Massachusetts or even better, more locally, that have recently done this dance?
I talked to the only one I've gotten direct contact with was Winchester, and they just closed Verizon and Comcast, but they were far enough away, I think, that they were completely separate negotiations. And that was a Bill Solomon engagement, and he said, it was relatively smooth. He did concur that Bill would repeat himself quite a lot, but it's okay. He's still a tiger. He's one of the tigers in the industry and whatnot. But they said it was pretty smooth even for Verizon. So I don't know if we took all the bumps and bruises in that first round, because we were in that first round of the new 5-year deals, where that was a big shock to the industry. Now that everybody's kind of accustomed to it, maybe it's going a little bit smoother, but who know, we won't know until we get in there, I guess.
That's what I was wondering, is if it's become a little bit more standardized over the last several rounds here, that maybe this could be a little bit easier to navigate. So, okay.
Yeah. I'll call around a little bit more tomorrow and see if I can make some headway. But we all share information. There's a lot of public information out there too. But we can definitely talk to the other executive directors or cable advisory committees.
But Brian, did you know how many years Comcast gave to Winchester?
That I did not ask. I'll double check that.
Recently, Comcast is still doing 10-year contracts.
Yeah.
And Verizon has done nothing since right before our renewal, has done nothing more than 5 years.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I guess smooth is a matter of expectations. I know when we did the Verizon contract, we were not anticipating a 5-year agreement. We were anticipating 10 years, maybe 7. If everybody's now expecting 5, then I guess it would be smoother. I wouldn't exactly call what we did smooth.
What did get released since, because they closed in August, they did announce 5G. So I mean, it's not 5G TV land yet, but that is out there.
Yeah, I also noticed in some advertising they were tying the two things together, the mobile service and the television. And I was just reading between the lines, that said, okay, they see a marriage there, and Shane would have much better information on how that could go than I would. But it's just an inference. I guess it's what Shane had said earlier, that might be the future delivery mechanism, and they're lining up their inventory of customers now before they implement. But again, just guesswork on my part.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. I mean, they've been quietly upgrading their network for the past year pretty aggressively. So I think they're very well positioned to be able to start turning that on. Foxborough was actually one of the first stadiums, first places in the country that had it. So you're going to see more of that happen. They'll still may need some last mile solutions to get into the house, but the major backhaul, I think, has been laid out and is much further along than they're probably letting on at this point, especially given competition like SpaceX and others are starting to creep up in their territory as well. SpaceX is doing their beta now where people can sign up. So that will probably become more mainstream either mid to late next year. They'll start to sign people up in mass for that. And that's very competitive.
Who was that, Shane?
SpaceX.
SpaceX.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. All right. Well, I'm showing 5:30. Brian, do you want to initiate the call to Bill Hewig?
Yep.
Just to let you know, I sent a link of the all license on the DTA to all of you guys via email again.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
617-759-1390. Calling. Is it not going? Enter a phone number. We'll try it again. 1-617-759. Trying.
Bingo.
Engaging.
Bill Hewig.
Oh, hey, Bill. It's the North Andover Cable Advisory Committee calling.
Good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Good evening. Hello.
So this is Ron Fagan, and the first thing I would like to do is, first of all, thank you for moving up to 5:30. I really appreciate it.
Certainly happy to.
All right. Let me introduce the folks on the call to you.
Okay.
We won't give you a quiz later to make sure you know all the names, but
All right. Well, I won't recognize the faces, but I'll know the names.
all right, see if I get in here. So, of course, there's me, Paul Blinn.
Good evening.
Shanita Arose.
Good evening, Paul.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that name. Anita, was it?
Shanita Arose.
Sunita?
Yeah. It's Chanida. Shanita.
Chenida. Hi, Shanita.
Hi there.
And Bill Diadamo.
Okay. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how are you?
Shane Woodruff.
Hi, Shane.
Hello.
And Brian Fraser, who is an ex officio member. He is the director of the North Andover camp.
Okay. Hi, Brian.
Good evening. Thanks for coming.
You're welcome.
And I think I got everybody. Any more than 5 or 6, and I get lost entirely. All right, so I guess we have no grand plan tonight. We thought maybe the best approach would be if you would like to kind of just start off with anything you'd like to say about your background experience in doing this kind of thing, things maybe we ought to know about you, and then we've got some questions we'd like to ask. Does that sound all right?
Certainly. That sounds fine. I don't think I sent you an actual written proposal, did I?
No.
With enclosures and all that. Yeah. So, well, Sure. Let me start. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. I think my first one was 1991, maybe with Rockland. I'm currently working on about, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 25 to 30 licenses for different municipalities around Massachusetts. The biggest is New Bedford. I'm doing Fall River, Amesbury, Leominster, towns on the Cape, towns in the middle part of the state. I've done a number of the smaller towns out in the west. I don't have any current negotiations with any of them at present. Farthest one, I think, is Southborough. I've negotiated mostly with Comcast because they're the biggest one around. Secondly, with Verizon, they're probably the second biggest. And then the third is some of the smaller companies over the years, but the third that I've done a fair amount of work with is Charter. I know you've got a Verizon and a Comcast license, and I've negotiated a lot of licenses with both Comcast and with Verizon. So I know who the players are, and I kind of know what to expect from them and know what we can get away with respect to licenses and what we probably can't get away with. So that's an overall kind of overview of my experience. Cable TV licensing is probably about 50% of my practice area. I do a number of other eclectic forms of legal practice, but cable TV is probably the biggest section of my practice area. I do other forms of municipal work as well, including litigation defense, and I do some insurance defense work and other forms of litigation as well. Cable TV is probably my biggest practice. I said 50%, it's probably more than that, but it depends on what time of the year and what's going on. Let's see. Let me just leave it at that, and then I'll answer whatever questions you might like. One last thing I'd like to say. I know who the other players are in the field. They're all good. And I have a very collegial and cordial relationship with them. Bill August, I think Peter Epstein may have retired, and Bill Solomon, I know Bill well. We've negotiated together in a number of different license renewals, including currently for 5 different Lower Cape towns where I represent the town and Bill represents the Access Corporation. What I would say is that the different perspective that I bring into negotiations is the following. I know that there is often a partnership between Access Corporation and municipalities. And that partnership is important to recognize and important to acknowledge. My perspective tends to come more from the municipal side because I've done a lot more work with municipalities and representing municipalities than I have with Access Corporations. But I have done Access Corporations. I've represented both of them as well. So I guess that's where I would leave it. That's an overview of my background, my experience, and I guess perhaps I can turn it back over to you, Ron, and try to field your questions.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate that information. So you kind of gave me the lead into the first one. You've done negotiations with Verizon. What are you seeing, whatever you can share with us about what their approach is to upcoming contracts?
And just as a reminder too, yes, we're a public meeting, but we are in North Andover. We broadcast all the meetings live, so we are live on TV as we're talking.
And recorded for access later.
Yep.
So we're all watching our language.
I never say anything bad about cable companies, public or private. Verizon, Verizon is it's interesting to me to see the difference in corporate cultures between, for example, Comcast and Verizon. They're coming from a different perspective, and the perspective that Verizon seems to be coming from is, I think, their expectation is less confident about the future of cable television than would be that of Comcast. One evidence of that is that Verizon has for perhaps, you probably know this. In fact, I think you have a 5-year Verizon license, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know they only do 5-year licenses now. They won't go out to 10 years. You've already seen that. Verizon will not tell you why they do that, and I don't impute any bad motives to them at all. But I do think that it probably is suggestive of a corporate philosophy that says we're not so sure about the future of this, so we're not going to commit for 10 years. I think that's a fair inference from what they're doing. Comcast, on the other hand, is still doing 10-year licenses, and that expresses to me slightly more confidence on the part of Comcast in their future of cable television. That having been said, we all know that cable TV is, its future is kind of up in the air. People are cutting the cord. Most communities, but not all, are experiencing either a leveling off of their funding if it's based on a percentage of gross annual revenues, or a decline in that because there are cable customers are leaving and going straight to streaming. So we have some questions about the future of cable TV and about the future of access, or at least about the future sources of funding. Excuse me just a second. Pardon me. I'm okay. I just tested negative for COVID. Just have an allergic cough or something. You know that Verizon only negotiates for 5 years. Verizon also wants an escape clause, which we fight, but we end up giving it because that's the only way that we can get a license from Verizon. Verizon makes other concessions in exchange for that. So I've negotiated a whole bunch of Verizon licenses for 5 years, and prior to that, in the last cycle, when they were doing 10 and 15-year licenses, I did a lot of Verizon work as well. So I'm relatively familiar with what they are looking for, what they'll accept, and I'm pretty familiar with the folks at Verizon, Paul Train in particular, who are the negotiators you'll be up against when you renew your Verizon license. Did I answer the question?
Yes. As far as I'm concerned, yeah. Unless anybody has any follow-ups they want to do. All right. So I guess that would leave me my next one, which is, what you're seeing is some consistency in the Verizon approach. Is it does it behoove us to negotiate with them? I mean, if they're holding all the cards, are we really going to have a negotiation, or are we just going to go through a dance?
No, you'll have a negotiation, and it certainly is worth negotiating with them. They're still giving money, and that's what you need. So the answer is a very brief yes. You should negotiate with them without giving away too much here, because we're going out over the air. I have found Verizon is easier to negotiate with respect to getting money than other cable operators, and I think that is in part due to the fact that they want to extract additional concessions for municipalities other cable companies don't. So the answer is yes, you definitely want to negotiate with Verizon. And in fact, under the cable laws, if they want a renewal license, you don't really have any choice. You've got to. It's a presumptive right of renewal, as lawyers say, for cable TV licenses.
Okay, thank you. Have you done any contracts which have a step provision for the payment rate to the town? We had done this previously with Comcast and Verizon, since they contracts expire at different times. We had Comcast have a step up in their contract when we did the Verizon contract, which was done at a higher rate than Comcast, so Comcast stepped up. Have you done any negotiations like that?
By step up, you mean the money increases over time?
Yeah,
maybe a couple times.
Well, when like one of them hits a new level, the other one hits that level as well in terms of the percentage of the revenue they provide to the town.
Yes, I've done a lot of those, and I'm getting some kind of feedback here, but yes, I've done a lot of those, and in a sense, they get necessitated. They are necessitated when you have a situation like you may have, where you negotiate, the two licenses aren't coterminous. So one comes up before the other. You negotiate what you think is, you need more money. So you go from 4 to 5% in one of them. And then they're going to say, yeah, but you're only giving 4% to the other cable company. So if you get 5% from the other one, we'll give you 5%. I've done a number like that, if that's what you're referring to.
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
We call it, it's like a matching provision. And Verizon and Comcast, in my experience, both do that.
Okay, thank you. Have you looked at our current contract at all?
I looked at it for about 5 minutes to do two things. One, I wanted to, I looked at both of them. I wanted to see, first of all, what the dates are when they're up. And I noted, you got my notes here, one of them is 2023 and one of them is 2024. All right. Then I noted, I always see how much money you're getting, what percentage of gross annual revenues you're getting, and also how much capital you're getting and how many channels you have. And then I took a quick look to see whether you've got an iNet or not. And it looks like you've got an iNet, but I couldn't, perhaps it's buried in the language. I wasn't, I didn't spend an hour doing it. But I wanted to know whether you own the iNet or whether one of the cable companies does. But that's as far as I looked in your licenses.
So do you want me to follow with that?
Yeah, please.
So
I'd be interested in knowing if you, I know you've got an iNet, or at least it's referred to in the license, but who owns it?
So Comcast had their iNet, which the town negotiated out of, and they bought out of it. I think it was like a $90,000 buyout or something like that. So, but money had gone towards building the infrastructure for the town's internet. So they have their own fiber network. That we do a lot of our broadcasting over the town's fiber network, but it's not an iNet per se like Comcast is.
Okay, so is the town's got a fiber net, and what is the difference between that and the iNet?
The iNet that was delivered by Comcast was copper, and it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
all right.
So there may be more granular information. The town IT director just moved on to a different position, so they might have a better explanation of how much contract money was put into it. But I know the amount of capital that they get from these agreements goes to supporting the infrastructure on the current network.
So the fiber net replaced the earlier coax iNet that Comcast owned and operated?
To the best of my understanding.
Yeah, and the town constructed and owns the fiber net? Correct,
definitely.
Okay, well, that's good. The reason I ask is because if Comcast is getting out of the iNet business, and it's partly the result of the FCC rulings and decisions and orders in September of 2019 that talked about in-kind contribution. But communities that still have iNets that are owned and operated by Comcast are in a lot of, have got to confront what they are going to do rather quickly when it comes up to license renewal time. Since you've already got an iNet that the town owns, that's just not going to be a problem. And that's really good news for you, because those problems are expensive.
Yep, that's self-sufficient. Yep.
All right. Have you noticed, and I think this is something we came across when we did the Verizon contract last time, many of their contracts had passed the expiration date, and there was questions that we had as to why that might be the case. Have you seen that happening with the Verizon contracts, that they're passing the expiration date before they get renegotiated?
Yes, happens a lot. Probably more frequently than not these days. I don't know why, but COVID seems to have slowed things down with respect to internal, corporate communications and things like that for both Comcast, maybe not quite as much for Verizon, but I seem to have noticed a slower corporate approval procedure with Comcast, and I don't know why that would necessarily be, but it does seem to be the case. But yeah, I once had a license that was 8 years over. So these it does happen. It used to be considered more of a problem than it is now. The current approach now that is accepted by cable lawyers such as myself and others, and cable companies and the DTC, is to say that as long as both sides are continuing to negotiate in good faith to towards getting a renewal license, then the current license, so the one that may have expired or be about to expire, will be considered to remain in full force and effect until the renewal license is signed, and both parties will continue to perform under that license. In other words, the cable company will continue to deliver cable service to its subscribers. The subscribers will continue to pay, and the cable company will continue to pay at least the percentage of gross annual revenues amount. The capital amount is usually a 10-year amount, and that's usually spent by the time the license is up. So if you continue over the date of the terminal date, you'll continue to get your 4% gross annual revenues or whatever the number is, but you won't get the capital amount because they've already paid you all of that under the contract. But as far as the legality of it goes, nobody really likes it. But on the other hand, it's just a practical reality that everybody has accepted over the past few years. It's not uncommon.
COVID aside, though, why would that be the case? And I guess my question for Verizon, given what you said earlier about their predilection for a 5-year agreement, shows let's say, I'll use the word lack of confidence in the future of the cable business or the fiber business. Are those two things related?
I can't say. It's difficult for me to get into the minds of a cable executive, Verizon, Comcast, or Charter. Why do licenses go over term? There's a variety of reasons. In some instances, it's the fault of the cable company. In some instances, it's the fault of the municipality. In some instances, it's both. And in some instances, it perhaps is neither. What a lot of times happens is you're supposed to start the process 3 years ahead of time. Well, that's way too soon. Cable companies do not sign licenses early. They wait at least until the term date is upon us, and then they'll sign a renewal license the next day, but they won't do a license 1 or 2 or 3 years early. So when you get a notice from the DTC saying you're supposed to start up the renewal process now, your term date is 3 years away, nobody takes that seriously because nobody needs 3 years to do it. So it often gets put on a back burner, and then sometimes, somebody finds this letter from DTC. It's been sitting there for 2.5 years, and there's only 4 months left. So you've got to do a lot of fast negotiating and fast ascertainment in 4 months time period. That sometimes happens. With certain cable companies, I won't name them because we're on the air here live, but there is at least one cable company that has been very, very slow during COVID. And I've experienced a great deal of difficulty getting them to review licenses and to, after we're past the initial negotiating where we've got what we think is a deal, to get them to approve language in a license or last moment details and things like that. I found them very, very slow. So that's another, has been, in my experience, is another reason why licenses might go over their term. As I say, there are just many different reasons, and it's possible that some of it is COVID related now. I don't know. That's only an assumption on my part.
Okay. So last question from me, and then I'll see if anybody else has anything else that they want to ask. And I'm going to ask this question on behalf of Brian. So Brian, forgive me if I've messed up your question. One of the speculations, of course, is that if Verizon moves off of their FiOS technology and starts going through another mechanism, that they no longer then fall under the requirements of the Telecommunications Act, and their payments to the town for kind of that right-of-way access go away. Is that your understanding or guess? And is there anything we should be doing to prepare for that or avoid it?
Well, I mean, that's the $64,000 question, isn't it? The basis of payments that cable companies give to a town or a city is based on the fact that they use public rights of way to stream their wires, put their poles up, put their equipment on, and deliver service to homes and businesses within a community over the public rights of way. And under the Federal Cable Act of 1984, Congress said a municipality can charge a cable company for delivering cable services over public rights of way. So that's the basis for the money we get, 4% and the 200,000, the 300,000, whatever it is. It's based on the fact the cable company uses public rights of way to deliver a service to subscribers. The minute the cable company stops using the public right of way to deliver cable service to subscribers, they don't have to pay any money anymore because they don't even need a license. If they deliver it by streaming it over the internet, even though, curiously enough, they may be delivering internet service over exactly the same wires that go over the same public rights of way, they don't have to pay because it's under a different statute of a different title of the federal statute. So once you get out of telecommunications and cable and you get into something else, a different federal statute, a different area of the FCC's jurisdiction, you have entirely different payment schemes, and that's the problem we're facing. So I think your question was, is there anything we can do about it? And the answer is yes, start writing your congressman.
Okay.
The answer is a legislative answer. And the other thing you should do is, and this is something a lot of access corporations and a lot of communities are starting to think about, is working with the community to start to envision substitute funding at some point in the future coming from the general fund. Because if you have a large decrease, a big drop in access support payments coming from the cable company, you're going to have to make that up somewhere. So some communities are starting a dialogue with or I should say some access corporations and some cable folks are starting dialogues with their communities about the possibility of getting funding from public sources in the future if and when cable funding starts to decline and die out. So two strategies to approach the future of declining revenues from cable companies.
Okay, thank you.
There may also, let me just say, there may also be remedies with the state legislature as well. So organizations like Mass Access and Mass Municipal Association have lobbying powers with the state legislature. So one of the strategies you should start to think about is making contact with those lobbying organizations as well as like-minded access corporations and municipalities and trying to put together some kind of political force so that it will be in place if and when it becomes time to ask for help.
We are fully engaged with Mass Access in all the legislation upstream.
Yeah, I imagine you are. I'm glad to hear you are.
All right, that's my set of questions. I'm going to open it up, see if anybody else has anything they would like to add in.
Sure. Let me just, if I could ask a quick question. You had mentioned earlier about the sort of the time frames needed to do the negotiation, and it sounds like, as often happens, things sort of come down to the last minute. Seeing as we're a couple of years away here, we're in that 36 month range, whatever it is, and letters have been sent by the town and by Verizon about, let's have a chat. What do you anticipate the timeline to sort of be over the next couple of months and or years in terms of things actually happening?
Well, that's a good question. It's kind of hard to be specific because every municipality, every negotiation is different. But one of the factors to consider is this. When you look at your current levels of funding and you consider what it is you will be wanting in the future over the next presumptive renewal term of 10 years and 5 years respectively, are you going to be asking for a considerable increase over what you currently get? If you are, the negotiations will take longer. If not, if it's either level to what you're currently getting, unlikely, but in some cases, some places do that, or maybe a 10 or 15 or 20 or 25% increase only, then the negotiations are not likely to be quite so long. So one of the things you look to is how much more money are you going to want to get in the next license term? The next thing, so that the length of time you'll need is somewhat dependent on that. It's also dependent on your ascertainment. Ascertainment is the process that you embark upon prior to signing a license, in which you determine what your future community cable related needs will be. If you think you are going to be in need of a hefty increase in access support payments in the future, you're going to want to have a pretty thorough ascertainment. You're going to want to have probably surveys. You may want to put together a fancy business plan with a lot of financial information, financial projections, discussions of the current programming, discussion of future needs, and so on. You may want to have more than one public hearing. So the amount of time you need not only depends upon how much money you're looking for, but also the length of the ascertainment time and the degree of detail and the scope of work you're going to have to undertake for the ascertainment process. Some communities can just do ascertainment by having a budget and a list of capital needs, and that's it. And they may only be looking for 5 or 10% more money, and those negotiations are fairly quick. Others, I've had communities that are looking for 200 or 300% increases, which they will not get, but nonetheless, that expectation has to be managed, and there may be very, very large expenses like a studio move or something like that have to be contemplated. And in those cases, negotiations for those types of things inevitably take longer.
Okay, thank you.
This is Shane. I'm curious to know what you're seeing across the industry with subscribers between Comcast and Verizon. Are you seeing a lot of movement one way or another, or is it pretty much leveling off or dropping off in all areas?
It's hard for me to say because I usually only get a snapshot of the subscriber numbers at one particular time in 1 year or maybe in 2 years. So, for example, in your community, if we've got 2 or 3 years before the first license is up, I would start off by asking at my first meeting with most cable advisory committees or access boards. I usually ask a number of questions, and one is, what are the subscribers? And if there's more than one license, how is it divided? It's all over the map. But typically that initial number may adjust itself a little in a year or 2 years, but I don't see a sufficiently long-term time period in order to evaluate how many subscribers are moving one way or the other. I typically just get a snapshot. So, for example, the majority of towns where I have a Verizon and a Comcast license are usually pretty close to 50-50 or 45-55 or 40-60. I've only had one where Verizon was way whopper-jawed higher than the other competing cable company. I guess to answer your question, I can't really say which way folks are moving. I very much suspect it depends entirely on the municipality, the community, and the atmosphere in that community, the programming, the service, the signal quality, and that sort of thing.
Okay.
And people also move back and forth, not because of cable, but because of internet as well. So it makes it even more difficult to kind of understand what's going on.
Okay. Any other questions from the group?
Just on that subscriber count, does that 50-50 split, or or if Verizon's lower in a town, like do you feel like that shifts the negotiations at all? I feel like we're a town that's maybe a third or a little heavier than a third Verizon, and mostly the rest is Comcast.
Well, here's the way I approach cable licensing when you've got two competing licenses and they're close to each other, but they're not coterminous, but they're within a year of each other. Our task is to look 10 years ahead because that's the term of the longest license Comcast, and to see what it is we will want over the course of those 10 years as far as funding goes. Annual funding, how much on an annual operating basis will it take to operate our access program and whatever else the municipality wants annual funding for. And then long-term capital projects, however much that's going to be. The task that I would set for you folks, if I were representing you, for the access folks as well as the town, is look 10 years ahead and figure out the total amount of money you're going to need every year for 10 years and the total capital you will need over a 10-year period. And then we take that and we divide it by whatever the percentage, the proportional percentages are of subscribership represented by the two cable companies. So if you're looking at, you need $500,000 and it's 50-50, we're going to ask for 250 from each one. If it's 40-60, you're going to ask for 200, 300, et cetera, however that is. So that's the first task that you have. And that's where you have to know what the proportion of subscribers are. So that is my approach as far as getting you the long-term 10-year funding that you will need out of both your cable subscribers. You look at them in tandem. Getting some feedback here.
That was
You look at them. You look at the two cables operators in tandem. You consider your total needs and you apportion them the needs accordingly and negotiate with each one respectively. Now, the other complication, of course, is that Verizon only does 5 years. So how do you handle that? How do you envision that in your negotiations? Well, the way that I do it is I look at Verizon and I say, all right, we don't have 1 5-year license here. Let us assume that we will have 2 back-to-back 5-year licenses equaling 1 10-year license for Comcast and treat it that way. So you would get, if you're looking at $500,000 and total needs over 10 years, and it's 50-50, you would ask for $250,000 from Comcast, and you'd ask for half of that, whatever half of 250 is, 125,000, whatever it is. You'd ask for half of that from Verizon in the first 5-year license, and then you're going to repeat that in the second one and hope you get it. That's the only rational way, it seems to me, to approach negotiations with both cable companies at approximately the same time when one of them is only going to give you a 5-year license.
Okay. Bill, did you have another question? You got that little hand raised. You got that little hand raised thing up next to your picture here.
Oh, sorry about that. No, right. I think I'm good at the moment. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other questions? All right. Hearing none. Then, Bill, thank you very much for doing this. And again, thanks for moving your stuff up, and thanks for handling all the questions. Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Nice to meet all of you, Ron, Paul, Shanita, Bill, Shane, and Brian. Nice meeting you all. I've got a great memory at 5:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It's nice meeting you. Wish you well. Look forward to the prospect, perhaps, of working for you.
You too. And in the meantime, stay safe. Have a very nice Thanksgiving.
You too, all of you. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
The call is hung up.
All right. All right, guys. Well, so we're not going to discuss that right now. But, make whatever notes you need to make so that, you kind of could go back and recreate it and put your opinions together. And then we will schedule another time to discuss it. Yeah. Somebody wanted to say something. Somebody went mute. Okay. All right. Going forward, I will send out the doodle poll for you folks. And again, the dates I think the dates that Alan Mandel sent us are kind of really near in, and that may not work for us. I will probably put some farther out, and then we'll go back to him and see if he can make one of those. Anything else before we go for the night?
How do we have any? Do we want to do any like action to start the ascertainment? Are we going to decide on chasing down departments, or start to come up with a 10-year budget? Or
what I will do to start the process is I will contact the assistant town manager, who is, I think, running this in the absence of an IT director, and suggest that she gives some thought to how we might want to be approaching the departments in the town to get their capital requirements. All right. And then I assume for you, Brian, that since all the capital requirements for NACAM come from you, you probably have a pretty good idea of what you're looking for, but you might want to start refining that a bit.
Absolutely. We can start there.
Yeah, and hopefully that's satisfied. And of course, the other thing that we'll have to think about is, in the era of COVID, what's the ascertainment process that we want to use and when we will do it. If we have outside counsel on board, then we can certainly get some guidance along those lines. Otherwise, it'll be just up to us duffers to put our best foot forward and see what we can do with the tools we have at hand.
Excellent.
Okay. Shanita, anything else?
No, thank you. Thank you, Ron. Thanks for taking that question from me.
Good. Paul, anything?
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. The only other question I did have is he talked about sending us a proposal, and I guess we probably ought to follow back in with him and make sure he's going to send one.
I'll follow up with Suzanne Egan, who I think received a proposal from Alan Mandel. I'll see if she can get one from him too.
Oh, she did get one from Alan?
Yeah, you should have received it. If you haven't received it, I'll send it out.
I didn't get it.
Oh, you didn't get it? Okay, I don't know where it came from.
Can we get that without making it a public document? I guess is the question.
That's another question I will ask Suzanne Egan. I will find out for you.
Okay.
All right. Shane, anything from you?
The only question I was thinking maybe we can ask the next candidate, now give them some more time to think about it, is what, if any, opinion they may have on leadership change at the FCC, because certainly that changed things for this past 4 years. I'd be curious to see if they anticipate very much the same, or some of that stuff could be rolled back with net neutrality and some of the things he was talking about as well.
I can get a pulse of that too. See what's happening.
All right,
Okay,
and I'll make a note of it on the question list here.
Thank you.
All right. And our newest member, Mr. D'Adamo. Any final thoughts, questions, words? I'm reading your lips because you're muted.
I am muted. Sorry about that. No, thank you. It was fun to participate, and yeah, we look forward to talking to the next gentleman, and then see where we go.
All right, great. Well, thank you, and again,
Brian,
welcome.
Brian,
Yeah,
I have a quick question. Is
here.
it possible for me to basically find out what is the last license he worked on that already finished? I actually sent you guys like the license thing, but I want to know which one he recently closed the license agreement. That would be great for me to take a look at that a little bit.
I thought, did you have a pulse on which ones he did?
Yeah. Well, I know we did Burlington.
Is that recently or like no?
That was back when we were doing. Actually, that's older now. That's 2016.
I want to see the recent one if it's possible, or maybe if we can have like a follow-up question. What was your latest license you
Yeah.
worked with.
If
The
you,
the only way I know how to do is scroll through the contracts and see which
I mean,
lawyer signed them.
if you if you gave me that list, I can probably do that legwork and just kind of
I
scroll
send the
through.
link. Send the link
Okay.
to you, Brian.
Okay.
Thank you.
Did he
Yeah,
happen to mention Wayland maybe? As one that just closed? I thought he had mentioned one of those W towns.
I'll tell you in a second because I actually have the list on right now.
Oh, okay.
Winchester? You say he was working on Winchester?
Might have been Winchester.
Wayland, it says, was 2008.
No.
Wasn't that one? I think Winchester might have been it. It was one of those. I think he said it towards the beginning of his
Winchester.
call.
We were talking about Winchester. Winchester was Solomon.
Okay.
Oh, that was Solomon. Okay, got it.
All right, well, we'll see what we can find for his most recent ones. I have no problem asking a follow-up question. And the question is, again, I've got to do that in some fashion that does not violate the various state laws on public records or something, which I'm still kind of wrap my head around.
Is it okay to send like email asking question, or it has to be public?
I have no idea, Chanel. Bill, we have a lawyer, Bill.
I was gonna say I would think it has to be public.
Okay, so I could send him a question and CC the CAC, and therefore it becomes public.
Becomes
Thank
public
you.
record. Yeah.
Okay.
I do invite. I mean, I think Chinita is the only one that's been down here. Please, especially now that we're entering negotiations, we have a brand new studio here. If you guys find the time, please come down and check out the location.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah.
impressive.
Oh, thank you. I'd love to see it.
It's right near Heavenly Donuts. Great. Shanita, did you want his last contract or his last Verizon contract?
I would say last contract. I want to see the recent one. I want to see the deals.
Okay, so Verizon or
Makes
Comcast or
sense.
Charter or whatever. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, all right. All right, guys. I appreciate you doing this in the middle of dinner hour. Thank you very much. I will send stuff out to see if we can reconvene. Look forward to this one that we got to do the second conversation with the other lawyer. Then we will schedule a meeting, which very shortly after we commence, we'll go into executive session so we can speak freely about the various feelings, pros and cons of the folks we talked to. And I would assume that since the town has to foot the bill for outside counsel, that we may present our opinion, but depending on the proposals that are given and the price associated with them, that we may not get final say. We'll find out. I don't know enough to know that. And with everything that comes out of my mouth, I can only say I miss Chris McClure, and I cannot wait till we get the new IT director in.
Thank you so much, Ron.
All right, thank you guys.
Happy Thanksgiving,
Have a great
all. Happy
time. You guys-
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, have a
Happy
very good
Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
You guys need a
Have a
motion
good
to
evening.
adjourn, please.
Oh, do I have a
All
motion
right.
to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. A second.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
For the record,
you.
any opposed? Good.
Never.
We are adjourned. Have a good holiday, folks.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right,
Thank
bye-bye.
you.
Thanks, guys.